Insta. I think everything's rolling. Let's go to me first and welcome everybody to the show. How are you? Hello, Twitch. Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. Hello, Instagram. Yeah, and hello, Rumble. I mean, I wish I knew how to say it in Farsi, but I don't speak Farsi. I don't know if you know this, but Rumble, the right-wing website, is kept afloat entirely by Iranian bots. That's my favorite new fact of the month. Welcome, Major Ojeda, joining us from Ojeda Live, turnleftpack.org, and he might have to bug out a couple minutes early because he's got a very important interview that he's doing, and I won't bury the lead. You will give it whatever intel or lead up you want to, but I'm just going to tell people it'll just be a tease. Make sure you see the live stream from the Major and his posts. So, hi, first of all, how you doing?
Doing great, man. I mean, staying busy. I will be probably filing to run for Congress within the next 7 to 10 days. Mm-hmm. I've already pretty much let people know, what my plans are. Follow Ojeda Live, follow the Turn Left Pack because I think that I may be able to flip a seat from red to blue here, and
that's
I'm
great.
Bust my butt to do so.
Well, anything we can do to help, we will all be there. You know, me and the sparklers and all the peripheral folks that we have involved. I know, Rob Glenn might be throwing some tech support your way, and he's got some good political ideas as well. So he's a very useful human being. We're lucky to have him. So I don't know how much you've been taking in what I would call the filtered reality versus the actual reality of what Congress is doing. And as you're preparing to run for Congress, I'm curious if you watched any of the alleged Doge committee hearings that I think Marjorie Taylor Greene just led her first one today, their first Doge committee, which for those that don't know is based on this fabricated department that Trump decided he could create out of thin air. But the government efficiency part and the fact that they have this, it is a subcommittee of the Oversight Committee. And so I'm like, I'm sorry, isn't the Oversight Committee supposed to be doing this anyways? Like, where is I don't even know what the point is other than to justify what Musk is doing, which is really, I guess, what it's doing.
Well, let me tell you, I think a lot of people also need to look at this way. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Hal, because I know that you're way smarter than I am. And I know you know this stuff. But, like when he comes in, like Elon Musk swoops in and let's say he kills USAID. USAID is an organization that let's say is a $2 billion a year, operation.
40.
Coming in and how many?
40.
How many? 40 billion?
$40 billion.
Okay, so you got a $40 billion operation here. He comes in, swoops in, kills it, and then tries to say, look, I just saved us $40 billion. At the end of the day, you can't think of it like that. I mean, he is killing people's jobs. He is killing capabilities. If we don't have that foreign arm that goes out and works with other countries when they have disasters, make no mistake about it, China will. And their influence will start to spread rapidly across the globe. And that's an absolute fact. But once again, they're talking like, oh, look at how much money he's saving us. No, he's killing capabilities is what they're doing.
Right. And, so $40 billion agency, its standard budget is about 20 to 24. The Biden administration used it to give $20 billion worth of aid to Ukraine over the last year. It was just like one of the ways they could get stuff out the door. But the average year by year is somewhere at 20 to 25 billion, probably. The savings and the, oh my God, pearl clutching shit that they've been talking about, it amounts to about $120 million worth of stuff. Now, should we look the other way with $120 million worth of wasted spending or something like that? And again, this is mostly like they just disagree with the priority and they would have killed it anyways, these little programs. But like pro clutching and pretending like this is a major hit on a $36 trillion budget and we're going to shave $1 trillion off the federal budget, you know, by getting rid of this thing, by killing this $22 billion on the regular outreach position from the USAID, you're going to have to do direct action. So all the stuff we build partnerships and we partner with other countries and we'll kick in a little and you kick in a little and we'll all get this done together and we'll make sure these people don't starve or become refugees or become migrants when they don't have to, all that stuff. That's what we use the USAID for largely. They're finding basically they killed the person because the pinky had gangrene. And that's the process they're doing with all of these. The problem is that human being had a lot of other worth, that being, that the USAID. Yes. And that's why, by the way, they are putting it largely under the State Department. So I think part of the plan right here is that they know they shit the bed on a couple of these things, but they act in big, broad swaths. Like he can come out and go, I threw tariffs on Canada right out of the gate and they bent, whatever. He can say he did these big things that lasted all of 24 hours. What's happening with USAID, by and large, is that they're moving the vast majority of the aid and stuff that it does under the State Department, under Rubio, so that if there's more graft or programs they don't like, they can blame Rubio and throw him under the bus. But also, they can pretend they got rid of USAID, they got rid of all these, and they saved all this money, when in reality, within a couple of weeks, they've been reversing all this shit because they're causing more problems than they're solving. But he's hiding the fact that this isn't working. All of his failures. This is yet another casino flop. This is another Trump stakes moment where it's the market's fault or it's the consumer's fault. It's never your product that sucks. And in this particular case, the USAID, he goes, I shut that whole thing down. Well, no, they didn't. They moved a big portion of it under the State Department, and the State Department is basically walking over this machine with all the switches turned off and turning all the switches back on slowly. It was dumb. It was an overreaction. But he's going to pretend that he got rid of this money. Still in the budget. It's still there, largely, because he can't. And they get to lie and say they eliminated this whole department. They'll do it with Department of Education, too. I guarantee it. They'll put... And
they're eliminating jobs.
Yes.
They're going to end up... and I did a video on TikTok, and I will send it. I'll make sure you get it to watch it. It's not a long video, but... Basically, I was sitting watching, videos, and here comes a guy from USAID that's literally in tears because he voted for Trump, and now he doesn't have a job. And, I just have to say, Donald Trump told over 30,000 verified lies in his first term. So, first off, 30,000 verified lies, that wasn't enough. You all of a sudden, and then in the last 4 years running for office, he also spewed nothing but lies at all his rallies and stuff. And, he gave everybody plenty of time to realize that he is an absolute fraud. And they still voted for him. And now they're going to sit here and they're going to cry. I don't give two shits. Right. Don't come on here with your snot bubbles a popping and all that garbage, daggone whining like a schoolgirl with a skinned knee. When you voted for this shit, he told you, he showed you why you should never allow him to elevate to any position of power. He deserves to be in prison, but instead, you voted to save him and put him back in the Oval Office. And now you're bitching because he's absolutely destroying. He is allowing Elon Musk to literally run rampant with six nothing more than children getting access to all of our data. This is only going to end badly. Right. But you did this. So don't come on here crying. You come on here and tell me what you're going to do about it. Are all you people at USAID that voted for Donald Trump, are you ready to go to Washington, D.C. and start taking it to the streets? Because if you ain't, shut the fuck up.
Right. Yeah, that's the issue that we have with a bunch of these folks, especially the ones who were like voted for him and the idea that nobody voted for this stuff. He told you what he was going to do. This applies to Gaza. This applies to all this stuff. The whole thing about him letting Elon Musk take on government corruption and look at the books and all that kind of stuff. He talked about this. We warned about this. I don't know why anybody would be shocked. Now, some of it is so slapdash as to be illegal. And there's a responsibility by Republican House members, which is what they're doing, Republican senators, what they're doing, and AGs in the country, which is what they're doing, to push back legally on him doing this. But the idea that he did it, or that he signed off on doing it, or signed an EO, allowing for it, at least for the time being until they tell him to stop, which is the problem with like high-tech theft, it doesn't take a lot of time. And, nobody should be, I'm not surprised he's fucking doing this. The surprise will be, the only people that are surprised seemingly are the people who voted for it and thought he was bluffing or thought it was bullshit or thought it would be like, it would actually work. So, like you said, 30,000 lies you verified or whatever, at least 50% of everything Trump said on the campaign trail was a lie this time around, because he was promising both sides everything. Yeah. His concepts of a healthcare, I'm going to bring down prices and I'm going to do all this stuff and we're going to have better stuff and it won't cost anything. And he promised both sides, and I'm going to get rid of Obamacare. And he's promising everybody everything. So half of it is automatically a lie. He's lying to one group if he means it to the other. But the reality is, and we're seeing that all of it was largely a lie, because both sides are getting screwed in this situation. Like that guy at USAID who voted for Trump and is like, I don't understand why he was doing this, because I bought the half of the lie that I liked. Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, it amazes me, how so many people fell for this. I mean, you got Latinos for Trump, Hispanics for Trump, Cubans for Trump, Palestinians for Trump, blacks for Trump. All of those people are getting stabbed in the back, by the way. Right. And, some of those people are right now sitting in a deportation center waiting for a seat on a plane to fly them to a daggone country that they fled from. That's what you get. When they have green cards, there's been a bunch of reports online about people who are getting, scooped up in these things, and they have active green cards. And by the way, everybody, I was going to be off today and tomorrow, but my flight got canceled because of snow. So I will be going in next week to see my kid, and I'm pissed about it. Don't want to talk about it. So just leave that aside. Anytime you don't get to see your kid for, when you thought you were going to, is always rough. But the flights are. Everything's like, there's so much snow where I was going, that wasn't happening, and they canceled school, and they canceled his parent teacher conferences with it. So that's why I'm here with you, and I'm glad that I could join the major today and talk about these things. And Phil will be joining us in the second hour. I think he'll be able to, because I had to cancel and then get everybody back in. That said, we're in the fuck around phase of their governmental action. We really are right now. The find out phase is going to be a lot worse for maggots than it is for blue state people. Oh, yeah. It just is. And what is it? $12 to $15 for a dozen eggs now, because you've got an FDA and an HHS secretary, that doesn't give a rat's ass and doesn't believe in infectious disease. I mean, you might as well have just brought someone back from the fucking dark ages who believes leeching is the cure to everything at this point. And so they just and there is the scariest part, I think, is the let it ride aspect of this, because when you've got somebody like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, who's an acolyte of his right now, as far as genetics goes, that they are both passive eugenicists. Both of them believe that we have been keeping poor people and sick people and weak people alive for too long. And one of the reasons you dial back these programs, and when you and I say people are going to die, people are going to get sick, people are going to lose their jobs, our response is that's bad. Their response is it's about fucking time. So I want people to know that when you're talking to these assholes online, all of Elon Musk's, remember all that shit about childless cat ladies we heard running the Democratic Party and running society and all that kind of shit? Elon Musk's entire crew are childless, relationshipless incels with no pets. Like, these fuckers are like, they're largely young dudes, and they're and every single one of them has no ties to the future or any like guttural reaction to, I have a kid, I need this world to carry on.
And they are more than happy to do everything in their power to shit on the people that are 60 and up. They're talking about, they want to gut Social Security. I mean, look, you gut Social Security, you're going to put a lot of elderly people in the food line, and a lot of people will struggle. A lot of people will pass because of this, but they don't care. They don't give a shit. It's all about, money to them. And,
so,
it bothers me that, we have so many people that were so willing to allow this to happen. And you know what? Red states are the ones that will hurt the most.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to figure out what type of, BS that the Republicans are going to be able to spin when it really starts to hit hard, these red states. If the blue states, I personally think that, California say, look, here's the deal. We're no longer going to send all this money to Washington, D.C. We're going to daggone put it in a fund that's going to basically help us whenever we have any disasters. Make no mistake about it. Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, West Virginia, Kentucky, South Carolina, Arkansas,
Montana, Wyoming,
will be in a world of shit.
Yes.
That is a fact. And all these people that want to sit and throw stones about people that are drawing welfare benefits, you live in a welfare state, and the majority of you people that are bitching about this are on those programs.
Part of the reason why San Francisco has the issues that it does, because it's as rich as it is. The reason it has large sections of its city structure that haven't been rebuilt up, and I mean, never mind homelessness, people go where the weather's good, and the reason there are more homeless on the West Coast than there are in New York or Chicago is because when winter comes, they die, and you can survive out here for longer lengths of time. But one of the reasons why San Francisco doesn't have the funds it would need to deal with all of its myriad of issues as a very highly dense area with a lot of money and a lot of, ancillary neighborhoods and stuff is because California sends a shit ton of money to Tennessee and Mississippi and Louisiana. If all that money stayed home and California operated like a country, it wouldn't have any of the problems it does. As a matter of fact, if it had border rules like Trump wants with the country, and Texas couldn't put mental patients on fucking Greyhound buses and send them to Los Angeles where they get dropped off on Skid Row. Everybody, they would all be clamoring about, we got to do something about the homeless situation in Dallas.
That's exactly what I was wanting to say, and you said it. There are a lot of cities in this country that go, you know what? People freeze to death in the winter. Let's put them on a one-way bus ticket to daggone California and drop them off. And that absolutely happens. Now, something else, though, and I was watching Kyle Kalinske yesterday, and he did something that I think is really important. He's pissed off at Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. And I think that he's absolutely spot on. First and foremost, we know that the Democrats have got a big fight ahead of us. We are fighting for our lives. And where does Hakeem Jeffries and where does Chuck Schumer go when they kick off this? We're going to fight for our country. They went straight to daggone Palo Alto and sit down with billionaires and millionaires. Look, the billionaires and the millionaires, regardless what party they're from, they don't really give two shits about the majority of us. If that's what you think, the problem is, you got to go daggone schmooze up to more billionaires and millionaires. No, I mean, I want to see people getting out here and putting boots on the ground in every single district in this country and finding the right people to run for office. Marjorie Trainwreck Green has won, I believe, her third term in the U.S., in Constitution as a House of Representatives. Surely there's somebody in that district that can beat her. I talk to people all the time about Logan County, West Virginia, where I grew up at. And, it just turned into the reddest damn state on the face of the earth. But I will tell you, I remember when there was a guy that used to own a gas station, and he was a good man, and everybody liked him, and he was honest, and he was just a very, very pleasant person. He still is. But one day they said, hey, why don't you run for county clerk? We need somebody that's decent to get in there. And he did. And he won, and he's been the county clerk now for about 15 years, and he's done amazing things for the county. He returns money to the county. He is the best person you could ever imagine. But once again, if we're not willing to put boots on the ground and find these people, and all we want to do is go hang out with the billionaires and millionaires in Palo Alto, then Democrats are going to continue losing. You know, I'm running for Congress, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to have a heavy fight on my hand. But to me, I have to do it. I think that there comes a time when you just have to look and go, you know what? If somebody doesn't step up to the plate, then we're going to lose it all. And you know what? Why not me? Let's do it. I mean, I'm that guy. So, but it just bothers me that, you know, we have all these problems, and the Democrats are acting as if, you know, there's very little that we can do. Man, get in there and fight, man. Look, there's 3 special elections that are getting ready to take place. And everybody in those districts already, there's a bunch of Hispanic, Latino, Cuban, black people, people from all different places that now know that Donald Trump is full of shit and a liar. And all of those people should absolutely be heading to the ballot box when the time comes and vote blue. And let's flip those 3 seats to blue.
I completely agree.
We take the House.
So I completely agree in terms of those races are going to flip. In terms of Schumer and Jeffries going to meet with the tech guys in Palo Alto, there is a distinct divide between to push back against what Elon Musk is doing. There is value to going to his competitors and going, you guys know this tech like he knows this tech or what he has access to. You keep track of this shit. What malware shit is he fucking around with? You're going to need, those are the guys you're going to need to get. And Democrats aren't going to be able to access through the regular order of government. They're not going to be able to bring these guys into private session or any of that kind of shit. Go there directly. That's not, and you're going to need money for these races, right? And you know that Elon Musk is going to dump millions upon millions upon millions into stuff. And again, Elon doesn't have an understanding of this tech himself. The guys underneath him do. That's why he brought them in. That's why all these little shit stirrers are on his payroll, because they're the actual hacker base. I don't have a problem with them going for this one particular thing, because they're doing a bunch of other things as well. And the way you find that out is don't watch the secondary news read on people who either have a bone to pick or a bias about things, or Republicans who say that, you know, Democrats are cowering and they're not doing anything and blah, 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 or you're only seeing a snippet of somebody standing in front of a podium yelling in front of a crowd. It's not the only thing they did that day. And so, if you watch any of these committee hearings, I don't see a single one of these folks that is letting this slide. Like Garcia's, he's on the Doge committee. And like his presentation, he didn't ask anything of the witnesses because there's nothing they're going to say. They were brought by Marjorie Taylor Greene and that crowd in front of this committee. But his display about these things was all about Musk and drawing attention to it. It's all he can do at this moment, and he's doing all of it. He's not dicking around and pretending these guys are going to answer honestly or give any of the shit, that they aren't just there as a PR exercise for this stupid fucking committee. So he used his time to draw attention to every single one of the areas Elon Musk is getting into. And he had a big chart that he put up, which is in each of these departments. This is what he's doing. He's going to lose. He's taking jobs out of this one. He's taking food aid out of this. He's taking, support for kids' lunches out of this stuff. And people need to know this stuff. Jasmine Crockett also did a great job in there. Everybody on there and in there is doing what they can in the minority. In the minority. A narrow minority, but a minority still. And one of the things that's going to transfer over, the power, if we're going to win these crossover districts, if they can flip, that means there's independents in the middle of that are still either drinking the Kool-Aid for Trump or are slowly coming to their senses, or are, one foot in each, in two canoes, right, going down a stream that's got a split ahead. That, you're dealing with a group of people. The Democrats, I believe, this time around are not going to just sit back with the opportunity of reclaiming the House and let it slide. And I think without Trump on the ballot, there's a diminishment of his automatic vote in there. He'll push these people, but he won't get the same turnout, we're hoping. But the middle zone, those folks are Democrats are being very positive about this. They're fighting about the stuff that I don't like, and they're drawing attention to this stuff. And they're not afraid of working across the aisle in the abstract with Republicans. That's what matters to these folks, right? And if you can bring them on board, that's what flips these districts. It's what flipped it last time, and it's what will flip it again. So my issue with Kyle is that his entire, like, he's basically TYT light in a lot of these situations where everything is every program the Democrats have passed is a complete failure, even if it saves millions of lives. And everything the Republicans do, even if it's temporary and doesn't do anything, is a total win and is run roughshod over everyone. It's very fear-based, and it's not reality-based. And so I would ask people, especially right now, because there's so much fucking noise, go watch some of the C-SPAN stuff or go watch some of the actual hearings. What the Democrats are actually doing, what they're actually voting against, what they're actually pushing back against. That's what matters. Because again, it's us. We gave away our power as Democratic voters. We either didn't communicate well enough, or part of it was stolen, or we allowed it to get within the margin where it could be stolen when it was a total runaway, or we didn't push back hard enough on some of the bullshit kneecapping of Democrats that was going on all last year. Jon Stewart came back after went on hiatus, permanent hiatus, in the 2016 fucking election, right as it was ending, right in the middle of it, essentially. And he would have been the guy who would have been useful in that slot to just attack Trump the entire way up to the election. It would have made a real difference to have him in there because people trusted him and they didn't have to adjust to a new guy. He left. And then when did he come back? He came back January of the election year where Joe Biden's running again. And his first crack out of the fucking gate, Joe's old. This is old. He's an old guy. He's fucking old. He's old. Fuck you. No, there's too many threats on the other side to worry about anybody who's operating under 85%. And I'm also, again, I'm not going to assume that just because I haven't seen it, they're not doing something. Because every time I go check, I'm impressed. Every time I go watch, I'm impressed. And again, Schumer, I got to say, like Hakeem Jeffries, I like very much. But Schumer gives me the willies. He's just kind of like, he's so geeky and nerdy. And he does, every time he tries to do, we're going to fight or something, it's just so ham-handed. He looks like Judd Hirsch, was it, from Taxi? Like there's this kind of like, meh aspect that doesn't do it.
Yeah, you got to, Chuck Schumer is also just in the same thing in reference to there is 11 Republicans, and that don't mean there's no Democrats because Chuck Schumer's one of them. But I know of at least 11 Republicans in the U.S. Senate that were actually there and voted to impeach Bill Clinton over a BJ. And of course, now they voted to acquit Donald Trump. But let that sink in. Yeah. We've got people in Washington, D.C. that have been in the Senate and in the House of Representatives for over 4 decades. And look, you know what? If you want to talk about term limits and things like that, look, if we just said, look, 20 years is that's it. If we did that, that would still be better. Yeah. Do you think those people actually know what life is like for their constituents? Because for over 40 years, they've been in Congress. And they have been making good salaries. And every single one of them that showed up poor, Mitch McConnell was poor as dirt when he became a member of U.S. Senate. Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, same thing. He was just a daggone monotone, poor guy. And now all of a sudden they're all multimillionaires. And, that's what it is. They don't relate to the people in their districts, especially in these red states. They have no concept what life is like, but then we keep elevating them and promoting them, and we got to have some type of cutoff, and that's one of the things that look, I whether it goes through or not, I plan to push legislation to actually cap people and say that right now I'm thinking, is it 12 years or 20 years? But I want to try to push things like that because I think that's important, because we got to stop allowing these people to use politics as a career. I'm all about, I did 24 years in the military. I have something that I've worked on. But a person that just went for, politics and has been a politician his whole life, all he is a lifetime politician. He don't have nothing in his background that shows that he can relate to anybody other than politicians. Well, and that's what's killing us in this country.
Well, so there's a broad swath of. I always find it funny when Republicans who are running for federal office talk about how Washington's so distant and all this stuff. I'm like, well, then why aren't you running for fucking governor, asshole? Why don't you run for lieutenant governor? Why don't you do some shit for your own state? If the idea is that Washington is detached, act on behalf of your state and use your state law to protect the state's rights that you say exist. They never do. They all fucking move there, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene and all this stuff, and they never go home except to campaign. They really don't. And most of them, the Republicans especially, and you watch the inflation was projected at being bad at 2.9%, that it was going to go up 2.9%, which is higher than the 2.3%, 2.4% in the last quarter of the Biden administration as they were tapering it down. All of this Trump shit is driving it back up. It came in at 3%. Which is a basis point, over or like like 10% more than they thought it would. That's bad. That means the Fed is not going to lower interest rates. Definitely. That means that the prices are going to continue to rise. And that the strategy, whatever strategy he's taking, they're either going to use this excuse that Musk says about, oh, well, it's going to get harder before it gets better, right? All that shit, right? But they're not going to like it. And these you watch, Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't going to have any fucking listening sessions with her goddamn constituents. She's going to stay in D.C. running her committee and isolating herself inside that and send emails out saying, look how much I'm doing. And none of it has any connection to her actual district. There is a guy that, and this is by your comparison, like, again, people complaining about what Democrats are doing or aren't doing so far. And again, they're doing everything they can within the law as elected representatives. And again, put that in a pocket for a second and understand that Trump's State Department hired a guy. What's his name? Hold on, I have to look it up here. Darren Beattie. Darren Beattie now works in the like Rubio appointed this guy because he was a request by Trump. In 2024, in May last year, he wrote population control, if only. Higher quality humans are subsidizing the fertility of lower quality humans. He called it the foundational reality of social and political life in the post-war West. The hierarchy of taboos is interesting. The horrific practice of second trimester abortion is legal in some places and well within the Overton window of public discourse. But the idea of offering feral populations financial incentives for voluntary sterilization is completely taboo. When a population listen to this language, when a population gets feral, a little snip snip keeps things in control. You could offer incentives, Air Jordans, etc.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. This guy, this is one of these motherfuckers that is, all these guys in the Doge all think the same thing. They're all Henry Kissinger-ites. They're all acolytes of Henry Kissinger. And so, like, they all believe they're a big swath of the population are useless eaters. They take too many resources and they don't kick anything back. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is doing this push for, upper class people and people of good genes or whatever to make more babies and all this kind of stuff. So you can't separate those guys from this strategy. You can't say, well, they wrote that online and he likes this thing and he talks about it a bunch, but that's not going to inform the cuts he thinks are valuable and the programs he's going to, support. So that is a more serious thing to draw from than any Democrat doing something anywhere, especially if you're not watching what they're actually doing. So that'll be my that's going to be my full frontal attack going forward, people can just expect that from me because I'm not bending on this shit. I've watched way too much of it. I'm watching committee after committee after committee and all these hearings after hearings and after hearings, and we are in the minority and all these fucking things. I don't want to hear anything, but these motherfuckers just hired a eugenics supporter to be in the State Department, and that should be the headline. The headline. Yeah. And again, I don't even need like fucking Maddow or anybody to interview a single fucking Democrat. I don't want to hear, I know what they're doing. I don't care. I'm willing to trust that they're doing their best to try and push things forward or at least operate within it so it doesn't collapse. What I would like is I want an interview with every single one of these Doge motherfuckers. That's all they should care about. Getting these guys on camera. What are you about? What do you believe? Where did you go to school? What have you been asked to do? What can you talk about? Hey, if they're going to sell this whole fucking transparency bullshit, we have to call them on it.
Yeah.
And I'm not wasting any breath on an ally, even if I'm disappointed in them, because this is too fucking extreme. And anybody who directs their show, I think, based on that idea, is part of the problem. That really is. Pressure is one thing, but again, it's unconstructive. Go ahead. Sorry.
The racism, especially the undertone of the racism that's going, like you said, Air Jordan shoes. But here's something. I wrote this down last night. Let's look at military.com, where they're talking about the powers that be are wanting to scrap recruiting events tied to specific racial and gender groups. So one general used anonymity to avoid retaliation, said the plans on recruitment from the Trump administration are effing racist, saying that for the Army, it's blacks need not apply. A general with anonymity said that. Everyone who joins the military, once again, has to maintain the standards regardless of sex and color. And, this reminds me of when they went into the inner cities of places like New York and Chicago, and they killed all the vocation capabilities in schools because they just all of a sudden apparently thought, black kids don't want to become electricians and welders and things like that. When you do that, you take a capability away from people that could use those capabilities to elevate themselves out of poverty. And, it seems like it don't seems like it is the way it is. They don't want people of color to ever be able to have a decent shot at anything. They're pissed off because there's a lot of white people that can't compete with black people. So that's their base. So they're going to do everything in their power to try to hamstring people of color, even when it comes to military recruitment. And honestly, I've never in my life seen so much blatant racism. And it's like we're almost, moving in that direction, and
what do you think
that's where people have to stand up and fight.
What do you think? Make America great again meant go back to a time when this was the standard fare, and I don't know. Again, I don't know why anybody is even like I'm disgusted by it, but I'm certainly not shocked. And we again, you and I, everybody, we were saying this is what's coming. This is the real thing. Democracy really is on the line. This is a racist organization. He is using Project 2025. He's basically a fucking stamp jockey for Project 2025 right now. And it's almost like they're trying to get him to sign as much shit before he dies as possible. It's the weirdest fucking bum rush I have ever seen. And with Musk there yesterday, did you see, I don't know if you saw the Musk in the White House thing.
Yeah.
Like Trump is just sitting there with his fucking hands on his desk, basically like,
yeah, letting him do his bullshit.
Well, and he knows that this is the guy calling the shots, not me. I'm pretending. And so insofar as the recruitment, there is a belief that Trump has, and I drew attention to it last year, and I don't know why it's not a bigger story, quite frankly. Maybe it's just because I'm my little station. But Trump believes that for a long time, and I don't know, I feel like he got this is something Don Jr. kind of mentioned to him, that the military has turned into a welfare program and an education program for people who can't earn their keep elsewhere. So they're literally they get this free education and this trade, and they're so unworthy of it in the real world, they can't get a scholarship, so they trade their potential life for this opportunity because that's how low rung they are. And he believes that people on the lowest rungs of society have used the military to gain access to like class shift. And he thinks that that allows people of low quality to enter into upper society, and you can see it in his policy.
They want to bring back the caste system, is what they want. That says if you're born into poverty, you're going to live in poverty and you're going to die in poverty.
I would argue that they think it already exists, that the caste system is reality, that the caste system is genetic. It is you can't avoid it. So all the things we've been trying to do to help people get out of poverty, educate them, do all that kind of stuff, which has worked very well, they think is a failure because they look around, they see people who don't look like them around them, and that scares the shit out of them. So they're like, it doesn't work. These people are never going to be civilized and smart like we are. So we should just take those programs away and just live in. That's why, Tucker Carlson and his race realist assholes, that's how they talk. They believe the caste system is a genetic reality. That's why he turned to fucking Musk's kid, and it was like he's a high IQ individual. And why does he think that? Kid's a fucking toddler, picking his nose. He wiped a booger on the Resolute desk, and Trump, I'm not kidding, and Trump goes, he's a high IQ individual. And not sarcastically. And
he's nothing but a daggone shield. That's why Elon Musk all of a sudden is now carrying him. You never saw that child until daggone Luigi Mangione, unalived somebody. Now all of a sudden, everywhere he goes, he's got a kid on his shoulders. It's absolute garbage. But it's something else that I think is important that you talk about. You've heard J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is now basically trying to say, why should we allow the courts to dictate the president of the United States? The moment that they give themselves permission to override or overrule the courts, we are in a full dictatorship. That's a fact. Right. They're pissed off because the daggone Democrats are fighting back in the courts, and they're winning a lot of the battles that they're fighting against these Republicans. So now J.D. Vance and them, and this is the most un-American thing that you can do. This right here tells you that these people don't deserve to be called Americans because they're doing everything in their power to do away with our democracy and replace it with the dictatorship as long as they're in power. These are people who bitched and griped about every single thing that daggone Joe Biden did. But when Donald Trump does these things, he gets a pass. And all of these poor dumb bastards out there that are starting to wake up and realize that daggone Donald Trump lied to them. Don't bitch about it. Don't cry about it. Do something about it. Take to the freaking streets. Maybe it's time that we daggone flood Washington, D.C. again with a bunch of people, a hell of a lot more people than showed up on January 6th. And we'll let them sons of bitches know that they're either going to freaking work for the American people or they can send out the freaking daggone assholes that daggone, started this bullshit.
Well, that's and again, part of what's happening here is Trump's little I keep hearing this from all the press around him, they're sort of giddy about how much he's getting done in the first few days, more than anybody, blah blah. Okay, all he's doing is fucking signing pages and pages of executive orders, all of which would be overturned by another president. And I would argue that the fact that they have to attack the judiciary and that J.D. Vance is attacking the judiciary is a sign that they did not have a mandate. They do not have a mandate, and they're not going to have a mandate anytime soon. And the way I can prove that is if they did have one, they could do this through legislation. A mandate in the House and the Senate, if that was truly what they got, then they would be able to, he wouldn't have to sign all these executive orders. They'd be able to rush these bills through because a mandate actually would exist. But nobody fucking looks at a basketball game that's 78-75 and goes, oh my fucking God, they got trounced. One three-pointer does not make a dunk, right? And so it's kind of, they know this. This is a recognition. There are some silver linings, I would say, in how they talk about this and what they're trying to push back against and the amount of distractions they're throwing up. Because if these things, if these, for real, if any of this stuff he was saying about having a mandate and the American people want this, then they'd have the House by a bigger margin. They'd have the Senate by a bigger margin. And even that margin, the people amongst them would agree on all this shit. They would have a mandate for the thing. The president would be able to direct the House. Right now, they can't even pass a fucking budget. They don't have there's this back and forth between the House and the Senate leadership right now about whether it's one bill or two. And so in people's minds, it sounds like a small thing. It's fucking enormous. The House Republicans were nearly at blows in the fucking White House when Trump, the deal maker, Trump, the deal maker said, Trump, the deal maker said, go in that room and work it out. Because if he was in there, all he'd do is give stupid ideas or side with the wrong person. None of them wanted to discuss the realities of the situation in front of him because he's not fucking listening. Again, if you had a mandate and he's actually this great deal maker, if it was true, then none of this would be happening. He wouldn't have people in his own party throwing chairs at each other, basically, in a fucking room in the White House arguing over the budget.
Lindsey Graham's practically in tears. Lindsey Graham's practically in tears right now because he knows that they're about ready to daggone embarrass themselves. And you know what? Go for it. Shut the country down again. Go ahead. See how that ends up for you.
And then go ask Democrats to fix it for you. Try to bring Democrats over and watch them go. And you want to see like Democrats doing something? That's what you're going to see. They're going to go, okay, yeah, here's how you do it. Put all the funding back for USAID, separate it out into its own organization again, but, put stuff back where it was. And maybe we'll talk about, some limitations on other budget catching. But why the fuck would we dig you out when you have the majority and you don't even have enough votes to pass your fucking bill in your own caucus?
Yeah, and don't meet them in the middle, Democrats. These people, you meet them in the middle, they end up winning, and they stick it to you every damn time. Do not meet them in the middle. This is their shit sandwich. Let them eat it. Offer them Tic Tacs at best.
Right. And that's, again, all they have to do is go, you give us a subpoena that brings Elon Musk in front of here, put back USAID where it is, and then, agree with us, through resolution or whatever, that any of the cuts that he's talking about from government programs that are funded by the Congress, that we have a say in it. Because the other thing, too, is, and this is, and I know you got to take off, but one of the things that I've been on the watch for is this creeping thing that Democrats are aware of it, but there's a creeping thing on the Republican side, it seems, in their kind of, bit of a freak out behind their false glee, that when I see them go to the floor and talk about shit, that they have this. They're really concerned about this lie that Trump believes he has a mandate, somebody whispering in his ear, and they know they can't get his shit passed. They know it. And they know it's not even going to, some of it's not even going to get out of fucking committee on their side, and they're fucked. And they're going to have to ask for 10, 12 Democrats to pass anything of merit. And the minute they do that, the minute 10 or 12 Democrats go, we'll help you do that, but you got to do this, 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 and this. It's on our side, it'd be annoying if something gets passed. On their side, it's a fucking betrayal. They'll think that bill, whatever it's called and whatever it contains, is an absolute time bomb. I guarantee it. So they can't even do it. They can't even ask for the help they need. So, we're in the fuck around time, clearly. I think we're rapidly approaching find out in terms of red states and the Republicans.
I think that within 3 months, everybody in Washington, D.C. is going to be up to here with Elon Musk. That's the thing that I believe is going to happen. Once again, the guy is absolutely, the reason why he hangs out with 20 and 21-year-olds is because that's where he's at mentally. He is a child. When you put him on the stage and he was hopping around, just a weird friggin' guy. But I'm telling you right now, this guy is shitting all over Americans. And once again, all those people that voted for Donald Trump that work for USAID, make no mistake about it. Today, they friggin' hate Donald Trump and they friggin' hate Elon Musk. And I'm going to tell you, I tell people,
Yeah.
message your Republican representatives.
That's
because
right.
this is important. You message your Republican representatives and you say, look, if you don't start standing up, if I don't start seeing you on the news standing up to Elon Musk and Donald Trump, do not darken my doorstep when it's time for you to get elected, because we will vote your asses out of office. And that's how we take this back, folks. You know, this could be so bad that the next time in 2026, there won't be a damn person that will walk to the polls and vote for these assholes to continue for another 2 years. They will vote out every single Republican in the House of Representatives, which is what we need. And then we'll have a mandate when we come in and we have a supermajority, because Donald Trump and his bootlicking sycophants allowed Donald Trump and Elon Musk to literally hijack our democracy.
That's right.
So, yeah, you let your representatives, especially if they're Republicans, you let them know that if they don't start standing up to Elon Musk, don't dare ask me for a penny, and don't darken my doorstep, because I will not be voting for your freaking bootlicking ass. And that's what needs to happen.
That's right. Thank you, Major. I appreciate it. I know you got to duck out because you got your interview, and I greatly appreciate having you on. We'll see you again real soon. Take care of yourself. Be safe, and we'll talk again.
Thanks, brother. Airborne.
Appreciate you. All right. Cheers. Off he goes. He's got an interview to do. And so I want you guys to hear me on this chat room while we're waiting for Phil, which I believe he's going to be joining us in just a minute. When I talk about, like, I've always hated this feet to the fire bullshit when it comes to our own representatives a lot of times, because I find it to be a tool of the slacktivist class that just ends up like backbiting your own side to the point where it doesn't change the policy or ability or the direction of the person you elected, because they're doing what they can and they're doing it as best they can, with rare exception. What it does do is send a message to the other side that says, you know what? Their support is weak. They're not going to hang with them. All we got to do is make them look like shit a couple of times, or act like we're winning, even when we're not, and it'll drive those guys crazy. And instead of attacking us, they'll attack their own side. That's what happens. And I appreciate that, Stargout. People don't have to agree with me on this. I'm telling you, Republicans think that Democratic support is a mile wide and an inch deep. For real. And you could argue in terms of the Arab Americans for Trump that became the Arab Americans for peace, and the uncommitted, and the fucking, the illusion of left-wing Democratic support with people who don't vote ever, that they're right. In those areas, they're right. It's a mile wide and an inch deep. But and again, the Republicans have their own problem with this as well. It's just because it's angrier and more bullish, people don't pay as much attention to it, because Democrats are caring and empathetic and more forgiving and probably softer in their language than people would like. The illusion of strength is easier to portray on the side of the Republicans because you don't have to be deferential. I agree, Robin. The Republicans do not have permanent support. Not at all. But it's easier to fake. And look at how many people were affected by the Gaza issue. Tell me they don't vote. They didn't. Or that there was a margin of them specifically that didn't vote or voted for Trump. Because I don't know where they got this idea that he was going to, Biden/Harris were pro-ethnic cleansing and Donald Trump would just end it magically in a day. Like, you have to be so fucking deluded to believe that, so as to be dangerously stupid, or you just might be, a member of an Arab group that just doesn't like the Palestinians. And so it's just easier to couch it in the illusion as an American that you're actually just for peace in the Middle East or something, when in reality you actually do want them dusted off. I think there's a big portion of the folks that voted that way, the Arab Americans for Peace even, it's just a fucking PR stunt. in the name change so that they don't draw the ire of people. But the goal was, thank you, Andrea. Okay. That, you know, their goal actually was ethnic cleansing of Gaza. Big Steph fan says, I tried posting he would be worse for Gaza and you got banned. Well, again, a lot of it's, you know, how you language it sometimes, I guess, because I talked about it as well, and I never got kicked off anywhere. And maybe I'm just too cute by half, or I'm more careful with my language. Listen to me being careful with my language about being careful with my language. Voted for Jill Stein. Person will never get a government job. I what? Alyosher, I voted for Jill Stein? No. I don't know what you mean. Oh, wait. There's Phil in the background. Here he comes. Excellent. Hold on one second. Let me pop this in here. We'll bring him in just one moment. And once it loads, we shall see what we shall see. And there he is. Phil, how are you, brother? Good to see you.
Hey, guys. Good. Yeah. Good to see you.
You too. Obviously, I guess the first thing out of the gate would be to talk about like Hegseth's, like, you know, NATO language or whatever a little bit, because he said, you know, it's unrealistic to go back to the 2014 borders, I think is what he said, which I guess includes them not giving up Kursk. I don't know, like, okay, does that mean the Ukrainians why does Russia get to go back to 2014 plus, but the Ukrainians have to give up the land they took in Kursk? I don't think so. Again,
he's an idiot.
Yeah. Yes, he is, and he got booed. And
he's an idiot.
And he couldn't remember the phrase "e pluribus unum." E pluribus unum. He was like e pluribus. Help me out, guys. It's like, shit, just so fucking lame. And again,
the drop off from Lloyd Austin.
Yeah, it's
to
brutal.
Him is just absolutely brutal. And yeah, I mean, he basically wants Ukraine to capitulate and to have no guarantees in the future, which will just allow Russia. Look, it's
not going to happen.
Well, no, it's not going to happen. But for him to even say it and propose it is, I mean, it's just manna from heaven for the Kremlin.
Yeah.
It's exactly the narrative that they want to have going into the Munich Security Conference. And not only that, I mean, to those of us paying attention, it also indicates they have no plan. They have absolutely no plan. They have no idea what they're doing. They're bumbling all over the place. They're, throwing shit against the wall
to see what sticks. Right.
And, Kellogg was supposed to, Trump's Russia-Ukraine envoy, former general, retired general, Keith Kellogg, was supposed to be in Munich. It was kind of expected that he would unveil the peace plan, the Trump proposed peace plan, or whatever it was going to be. And that ain't going to happen. Hegseth, with these announcements that he just made, 2-3 hours ago, it's exactly what Putin would like. It is giving up things before negotiations even begin. Things like NATO, things like that Ukraine will never join NATO, things like saying that that regaining their territory isn't realistic. The Ukrainian territory is unrealistic. What else did he say that was just like is going to be an absolute DOA on arrival when it comes to the Ukrainians, because they won't accept it. They can't. Yeah. It's not something they can do because it'll happen. It'll start again. It'll start again in 5 years' time or 10 years' time or whatever it is. No, I mean, it's I was doubting myself for a while because I was thinking that maybe Trump would be just so stupid to be transactional But if that's what it took, for the rare earth minerals or whatever to stop the killing and to get to a negotiated peace that would be acceptable. And, look, we've talked about this before. Maybe there's some wiggle room when it comes to Donbass, when it comes to Donetsk and Lugansk. But the Ukrainians are never going to give up Kherson. They're never going to give up Zaporizhia. Crimea is going to be a huge issue. And so is Mariupol, occupied Mariupol, in Russian hands now. It's just a non-starter. And to have the U.S. Secretary of Defense come out and say this is damaging as well, because it indicates how little he understands the situation here. So it's more indication to me, and I wish it was. I wish my validation in my beliefs that the administration is compromised. I wish that would be a happy thing for me, that I could be like, aha, I told you so. But it's not. We have been infiltrated deeply by Russian people that are fellow travel. I don't know where the gradation is of who is pulling whose string and what is going on behind. And we may, it may take until we put, hopefully Trump behind us. And I still believe in our country that we will get to that point and have a look back. But that, I was hoping we'd do that with a Harris administration. But we need to do a postmortem. Once he is gone, touch wood. Once he's gone, we need a full postmortem. I'd love to have it now, but it's not going to happen. But they have so many people who are either useful idiots, fellow travelers, or downright operatives working for the Kremlin in the Trump administration, that we should all be really, really deeply concerned, because all of the things that they're doing, everything that they're doing is exactly what the Kremlin wants. I mean, like all these foreign policy maneuvers that they're making, whether it's USAID or, breaking down Radio Free Europe, or pushing things to a point where European security, is now increasingly considering that they need their own security organization. NATO no longer works. Well, the Kremlin's been trying to destroy NATO since its inception.
Sure.
So this plays right. I really still think, and I mean, this is from years of studying the region, from years of studying what they do when they infiltrate countries. I'm sorry, I and I may have to eat my words. And if I do, then fine. I won't be. This won't be an ego thing for me. But every American needs to wake up to the fact that the Russians are inside our government.
Yeah. Well,
100%.
Especially Tulsi Gabbard just got confirmed. And again, I feel like it's some of this, like, she's benefiting from the fact that they're really having a time getting the votes for Kash Patel. So if Kash doesn't make it, they're giving him everything else. He's become kind of the, Matt Gaetz to Pam Bondi to some degree. Like she has to get cleared because at least he got rid of that dude, right? And you can only take, and every president has the right to fail their cabinet, blah blah blah. But yeah, that would be a huge sign. Mitch McConnell voted no against her. It was not, a unanimous vote by any stretch. I don't know what the actual. Let's see if the one, because it just happened. 52 to 48, almost along party lines. So she lost two Republicans in that. And again, this is, she's either going to be an instant disaster or a self-aggrandizing, like to the point of building her own presidency in the future. And that actually is the best case scenario. Best thing it could probably happen now that she's in there. Best case is that she wants there to be a country that she can run at some point in the future. No Dems voted for her at all. Republican, she lost 2 Republicans that I see anyways. Mostly lined up. Yeah, I don't see. They don't have the list of the of those, but she'd be an example of somebody that there's ongoing concern about her. Okay, couple of things that I want to address.
Well, yes, I guess before you move off of Gabbard, though, I get the impression of Gabbard that she has been a useful idiot. That she absorbs the Moscow mind worm, or she has in the past absorbed the Moscow mind worm. And
our staff talked about that.
The only thing that I can be left to have any hope about is that when she actually gets in, that she is briefed by people who know what they're talking about, and they go, you have not, you have been a victim of this, you have been a victim of that. You need to realize that they are not only you, but like vast swaths of the world are believe in the crap that Moscow puts out, because it's very dangerous and it's insipid. Yeah. I'm hoping that she has been basing this all on the hours and hours of RT or whatever else she's been consuming, the information she's been consuming from like Sputnik or all the usual. All the usual criminals.
She would get fixated. She'd get fixated on the shit. She's basically like trapped by YouTube videos or RT videos that she saw, and would just get fixated on some idea and probably do a ride along with the power associated with it. She's also, I mean, I don't know what the extent of her cult leaders' control over her life is. I mean, for all the stuff, she's from that really weird cult in Hawaii, and like if it was Scientology and people were aware of it, they'd go, I'm really worried about, Miskovich or whatever his name is having too much control over our DNI or whatever. But nobody thinks that about her because they don't know about her. You know what I mean? Her little.
How much of our history in the United States did we reject Catholics until JFK came along, which is not a new development,
right.
It's a pretty recent development, really.
That's right.
The argument was that Catholic Americans would be more beholden to the Pope than they would to America, and it's the same old. But we are apparently caught in the psychosis that the Russians have really pushed on us pretty hard, and I'm not absolving us of our own guilt. We should be better at this. We should explain to our populations what media consumption is about and how we are currently involved in a war with Russia. We're at war with Russia. Guys, wake up. It's not abstract. It's real. They're in our body politic. Tulsi Gabbard, Hegseth, go up as far up the chain as you want to. They're either useful idiots, or they're, as I say, fellow travelers. I don't think there are a lot of actual operatives. I think there are operatives in the Beltway for sure. I mean, that's like, hey, ice is cold and water's wet. There are operatives inside the Beltway and inside, I would hazard a guess, definitely inside the government. But how far up the chain it goes, I don't know. I mean, is Trump actually really compromised, and to what extent?
Okay, so
I don't think we're going to know until we got him in the rearview mirror.
Right. So Trump,
unless
apparently
something crazy happens.
He spoke to Zelensky, I want to say yesterday, the day before, and then he allegedly has had an official call with Putin. It lasted an hour and a half.
Today.
Yep. And the Kremlin released details about the call itself. And let's see, there's a couple of things.
Trump does not come off well.
No. It's my favorite. Here's my favorite quote. Hold on, let me show you this. This is so on the fucking nose. Trump says he spoke to Putin immediately about starting talks to end the Ukraine war. Like, if you can't, like, nothing wraps up this whole thing. I spoke to him about starting talks. Great. Brilliant. Yeah, cool. And guess what? Apparently he wasn't aware that those talks were actually happening, because during the call, the conversation between Putin and Trump lasted an hour and a half. In a conversation with him, Trump spoke in favor of a rapid end to hostilities in Ukraine. No surprise. He's been talking about that shit. It has been, by the way, speaking of rapid decline, yes, Turd Ferguson, it has been over 24 hours, technically, since the election and since the inauguration. Putin told Trump about the need to eliminate the root causes of the Ukrainian conflict. This is the problem. This is the unsolvable. Putin told Trump about the need to eliminate the root causes. What would those be? I don't know. The existence of the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian state, Ukraine having borders at all, the fact that it slows them down on their march towards Poland. What the fuck? Like, get out of here with this nonsense. That's where it became a non-starter. That sentence alone. Okay, then the parties discussed the Middle East settlement and bilateral relations between Russia and the United States. He just bitched about Gaza and said it was a war zone, and probably chewed like Putin's ear about real estate development. Putin invited Trump to Moscow to view some of their lovely third-story windows. And Putin and Trump agreed in a telephone conversation to organize a personal meeting. Probably no note takers present, and only one translator that will be provided by Putin's office. The Russian leaders supported Trump's thesis that the time has come to work together. Yeah, to get rid of sanctions, I guess. And he agreed that Trump that a long-term settlement in Ukraine could be achieved through negotiations. Yeah, great. And if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Like, it's just so dumb. It's so fucking dumb. And I gotta say, like,
even for him to float, even for the Russians to float that the first meeting between Putin and Trump would be in Moscow, it's
please,
the U.S. president with a dog collar on a leash, going to his dom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not unheard of, I don't think, but it's not protocol. Diplomatic relations, some things, when you spend enough time around the kind of diplomatic world and international relations and things like that, you start to read between the lines. And a lot of this stuff is actually quite formulaic. Like, if who meets who on the top. So, there's protocol. There's diplomatic protocol that's existed for a very, very long time. And going back most certainly centuries, but how much of it is relevant to today. But there is diplomatic protocol. And this would not be a good look for the U.S. president to go to Moscow first with hat in hand. You want to meet in a third party country. You don't meet. I don't think Putin would not go to Moscow or to Washington as a first overture to Trump. Especially not Putin because of his pride, but they are bumbling around like absolute rank amateurs because they are, because they are, what they're proposing is ludicrous. If the Hegseth announcement where he said, Ukraine can't join NATO, that goes 180 degrees the other direction from what we've been trying to say, whether it's, ultimately NATO, let's put them on a path to, I don't know when we'll get there, but we'll get there. And that is, something that Ukrainians have hung on to. They've latched onto it. And now we're, moving that position, and that's not good. It's just the whole thing is exacerbating. It is.
Here's okay. So here's the statement from Trump about the phone call, and I want everybody to look at Trump's fucking face in the picture where he's walking out to give the statement. Basically, look at his face, like he's like, oh shit, like everything is this like mild weird panic, where he's doing this kind of like he's doing that Bush side jaw, except Bush at least came by it naturally. I think it was cocaine, but Trump's is like this adjutant like. But he goes, I just spoke to President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. The conversation went very well. He, like President Putin, wants to make peace. We discussed a variety of topics having to do with the war, but mostly the meeting that is being set up on Friday in Munich, where Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead the delegation. I am hopeful that the results of that meeting will be positive. It is time to stop this ridiculous war where there has been massive and totally unnecessary death and destruction. He does it in all caps, sorry. Death and destruction. God bless the people of Russia and Ukraine. No word on whether he wants the Sudanese civil war to end. It's just this thing where the two groups of white people are killing each other that he seems to just end for the abstract idea that whatever. Anyways, again, so Friday they're going over there to have this meeting.
Well, Hegseth is already here. On this side of the Atlantic, he was in Germany visiting the troops, and then I don't know where he did the meeting with the Ramstein group. Mm-hmm. He did. I guess this is where he made his statement, was after a meeting with the Ramstein group, or the Ramstein model group. It's a terrible thing. That they're doing over here with this leading into the negotiations by already giving Vladimir Putin two of his most choice desires. And even if it doesn't go through, and I agree with you, Al, I don't, the Ukrainians will never accept it.
Yeah.
But, saying NATO can never join and forget about returning to what he meant to say was 91 borders.
Yeah.
Because that's what Kiev wants, and that's what should happen, because that's the legal, those are the legal boundaries of their borders. De facto, they have taken ground by force of arms. So we're rewarding them for that. Oh yeah, you can just come in and take stuff like Mariupol and level it, and then force mass migration and trauma. But never mind. As long as the shooting starts. This is the other thing that really bothers me that I've seen all throughout the West, is this like, just make the shooting stop. Just please, God, make the shooting stop. Nobody wants the shooting to stop more than the Ukrainians. You know what woke me up this morning at 4:30 in the morning? You know how I woke up? We were shot at by 4 Iskander Scud missile size, missiles, medium range missiles. That's not fun. That's not a lot of fun. I have no desire to keep living this way. It sucks. And then, and I'm a foreigner. I'm a guest in this nation. I'm not, every Ukrainian I know has lost friends or family, or has been wounded in some way by this war. Nobody wants the war to stop more than Ukrainians do. But Ukrainians understand the enemy better than we do in the West. We're afraid of the enemy. We're afraid of the possibility of Putin being deposed. We're afraid of the concept of the Russian Federation going through some real serious upheaval if and when they were to categorically lose this war. We're more afraid of that than we are for Ukrainian victory. And I mean, that's not me being, hypercritical or cynical. That's we could give the Ukrainians what we could have given, and we could still give the Ukrainians to do that which they need to do what needs to be done. And that is that Russia needs to get their bollocks a good kicking, because otherwise they'll do it again. They'll just do it again. And it's they prey on the terror of the unpredictable, violent, barbaric Russian. And look how crazy we are, and we got nukes, and we sacrifice hundreds of thousands of our men without blinking an eye. Aren't we scary? Ooh, and oh, by the way, we're invincible and a force of nature and an inevitability, and invulnerable, invincible, all the good stuff. And the West goes, oh shit, oh, they're right. And they capitulate all the time. The Ukrainians are like, no, these guys are weak, and they can be beaten. We lived with them. We have been their colony for 500 years. We know them better than you do.
Yeah, I also think
stand up to them.
There were already dealing with, I think, like China, the natural demographic collapse of the circumstance that they found themselves in, and the move away from fossil fuels that the rest of the world has been attempting to do for a couple of decades now specifically, and that will be the last thing they produce of value for the greater world. And that was already happening. So even without the Ukraine war and killing off a bunch of their young men who might have been part of their future, or running them out of the fucking country, having people flee, or taking what little money the country does still have and just putting it in bank accounts directly tied to Vladimir Putin or crypto or some shit. They were even without the war, they were already headed in that direction. This is just exacerbated. If everything just stopped tomorrow and the rest of the world was like, okay, we'll still buy some Russian oil, but we're not going to buy it at the higher rate that everybody else. You guys have to pay back the money. Profit has to go to build Ukraine up or something like that, which would have to be part of this deal, right? There's still that still hastens the collapse. It's fucked up. Like I'll show you real quick. There's a where is it? I know I have this in here. So there it is. Russia is, you always talk about these assholes who are like, gold is real, buddy, and blah, 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 blah. Russia has officially started, because they can't trade with China, which was there's no BRICS currency like they were going to make. So they are just selling and spending gold. They're getting around sanctions by buying and selling things with gold, which is the primary reason why all the people are like, gold's real money and in the future, blah, blah, blah. No, gold is a physical version of crypto. It's more reliable, but it has to be transported. It has to be physically transported. Okay. But that's why they do it, because nobody knows where the gold came from. Nobody can prove it once it's in your hands. Even if you gave somebody a receipt, somebody could type up a receipt for gold. It's not stamped in the shit itself, and it's not tracked like fiat currency where it's got a serial number on it or something like that, or a strip in it. It's just gold, and so they use this aspect of things to get around a lot of sanctions, and they're already. Their gold reserves have been cut in half, and largely it's because you'll remember at the beginning of the war they were gathering gold and all kinds of other shit so they could ride it out. Well, they are in the final break glass period. If Trump can't negotiate something to pull this to a stop and reopen things financially, they will break before maybe even their military does. Maybe before they run out of cannon fodder, they will run out of money. And again, China's looking down the barrel of all the stuff that, economically that's happened in their country, and they need to start making friends again. Whether they can or they will, or it's part of the plan or whatever, we can't know. But it certainly doesn't involve going down with the sinking ship that is the Russian economy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's stupid.
Yeah. And now that they're really cracking down on the shadow fleet, the Europeans in particular, and getting off their electrical grid and all sorts of stuff that the Europeans are moving to do that are going to hurt them and lessen their influence over the rest of Europe. That's happening. So, but then again, also you see like Bondi lifting the program that was put in place by the Biden administration to seize Russian oligarch assets. I mean, that program has ended. It's still going on here in Europe. And we do I mean, I wonder how much longer it's going to be before this is on the chopping block, but we are signatories to the Magnitsky Act. So, you know, that hurts Moscow's, you know, bottom line, as well. So, I'm concerned about ultimately the U.S. leading, you know, breaking with everybody else and talking about lifting sanctions and things like that, as part of a carrot for Moscow for negotiations. That would be a terrible thing to do. That would only incentivize them again even further. I mean, you gotta, you know, look, this is nothing new to the audience we speak to, you know, if they've been watching for a while, but you know, if you let them win, if there is an advantage that they get from having engaged in this war, they'll circle back around again. They will. They're not. Their lust for Ukraine is never going to stop until they are disused of the idea of Russian Empire.
Right.
And that's a tall order. There has to be a real serious shock to the system for Russia as a society and a culture, in their entire kind of historical dialectic, that unless they walk away from Ukraine either completely having not gotten anything or gotten stuff that's so minuscule and insignificant that the Russian people are going to be like, you know, once they get over their patriotism euphoria of kind of like, we have to bind together during this war and no speaking ill and patriotism and all that. But then when the shooting stops and the dust settles, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be looking to Vladimir Putin and going, why are we suffering? Why did we go through all of that? Why did we lose over 100,000 men in casualty numbers? Why did we walk away still not controlling the North Shore of the Black Sea and not having a puppet government in Kiev? Our Sevastopol base is no longer viable. We're all bottlenecked up in the east of the Black Sea.
Kursk.
Our Baltic Sea is now bottlenecked in because the Baltic Sea is now a NATO lake. So really, all we have is our Archangельsk in the Arctic, which freezes over for like I don't know how many months of the year, but it's open more than you would think because it's at the end of the Gulf Stream, but it's still inefficient. And the Vladivostok fleet, the Pacific fleet, is not viable because you can't sustain it over land. You have to, I mean, you still have to do maritime support for it's just, this has been utterly disastrous. So anyhow, what do you got here?
Well, this is Mark Vogel, the guy who was released from Russia. Yes,
that's before he was taken.
Right. This is I don't know that they have footage of him coming in or whatever, but they do. That's Paul Whelan.
Yeah, they do.
But anyways,
they have him
point
at the
being,
tarmac.
and he came in. I guess Marco Rubio, both Trump and Trump said it was very fair, the deal, trading 1-for-1 or whatever. And Marco Rubio apparently said that the Russians, quote, didn't want anything in exchange for him, which I call bullshit, considering they got this guy. This is Alexander Vinnik. Alexander Vinnik shockingly ran a crypto money laundering scheme for the Kremlin and for organized crime to the tune of about $4 billion. There's a reason they want this guy back, because and again, this is the most crypto-friendly White House you've ever seen, and they don't even know how the shit runs. And they want, I mean, the idea is that I wouldn't doubt it would Trump and Putin have a meeting. This guy will probably be sitting there. This guy will be in the fucking room. Because his whole thing is, how do we pay for our mercenaries? How do we help Iran get money to Hezbollah? We do it through Bitcoin. We do it through cryptocurrency. That's all it is. It's a great way to hide the travel of money, where it started and where it came out. That's it. And like the irony that Bitcoin has, it's since it's on the blockchain, it would be very specific. Like this particular Bitcoin was bought from you and put to this person, and you took it, that specific Bitcoin, and gave it to somebody else. Like it's more trackable in theory than other forms of money, but you can't get access, or at least in theory, you haven't been able to get access to people's records. Who sold it and when, who bought it and when, and all that kind of stuff. The record exists for the safety of the person using it, but accessing it has been the hard part. Once a quantum computer cracks that thing, which is, I would argue they already have, but they just kind of don't do it they're keeping it relatively on the down low. Once that happens, this is all, they have to shift to a whole other system. We're back to truckloads of cash and gold bricks. But that's why that's why Trump gave up. That's why it was a fair trade. Hey, you guys get this guy and he'll work with us. He'll work with shit. I wouldn't be surprised if Don Jr. had a business venture with this motherfucker in a year. Once he, they throw a mint in his mouth and give him a week's vacation and a hero's welcome. So, don't let anybody tell you that we got that guy for free. We traded him for somebody. That was very specific. And it was, one of our citizens who was busted over medical marijuana versus a guy who literally ran, money laundering for drugs and human beings and guns. So this is, it's not a fair trade at all. He was a hostage. They took our guy hostage and used him to get their guy out. That's what this was. This was not a prisoner exchange. This was not a act of goodwill by the Russians. They started taking U.S. citizens hostage to use to get their criminals out of our jails. I mean, there's so many parallels to fucking Hamas. It's ridiculous. No wonder Hamas, immediately after October 7th, their first visit was to the Kremlin. So again, I would argue that guy, Vinnick, will have more impact on the world than the fucking dude the arms trader guy from Gods of War that let go, right? That we traded for Brittany Griner, right? That dude, because I mean, what's he gonna do? Like fucking pal around with Wagner guys in Africa selling AK-47s? I give a shit. But this dude can manipulate digital currency on a massive scale. That's why they want him back. So, again,
we are badly losing this war. We really are. They're kicking our ass.
Yep. And again, I think a lot of it has to do. I mean, it's not. At least I'll show you. It's at least being covered a little bit. Here you go. This is NBC. Russian money launderer to be freed in exchange for Mark Fogel. They're people are, at least we're getting these flags in the ground so people know at some point. The reality is, though, is that, again, MAGA's going to be hurt by the cuts that Trump is making. The national security hawks in Trump land, including, I believe, Marco Rubio, are going to be hurt by his directives. And they're either going to subvert them, water them down, or tell them they did it anyways and not do it. Right?
I'm not. I think there are enough good career officers that Hegseth can be, quote unquote, handled. This was not a great day for Hegseth, and what he's going to, I'm sure, do in Munich is not going to be great. But I still knowing the officer corps and knowing our soldiers as I do, I think they'll gum up the works for Hegseth. Let him be a clown in the public sphere. But when the rubber meets the road, I think they'll. But the intelligence community, I'm really worried about, and I'm worried about our foreign policy. I mean, state will implement what they are told to implement, but our intelligence community is just so rife with really dodgy. Whether it is Gabbard, or even, Kash Patel, or,
Right.
whoever else. I mean, it's just that I say that we are losing that war, that battlefront. Let's call it a theater of battle, because we are at war with Russia. Folks don't like to hear that, but we are. And we're at war because Moscow wants to be at war with us, but they don't want to take us on the actual battlefield. So, this is the hot battle theater. This is Ukraine fighting for its independence and us supporting Ukraine, to the benefit of all of, liberal democracy and pushing back against autocracy. That's definitely and on that battlefront, we can win that war. We can win. We can be victorious in that sector, but we are losing very badly to the infiltration into our body politic, into the information sphere, into, the psychological warfare, the espionage. The Russians, I'm sad to say, it appears to me, running circles around us. In no small part because we need to get this message out to more and more Americans that this is happening. It's not, they've done a really good job with making Russia dismissive of the very real threat. It's a meme now. It's Marsha Brady. They did. That's not a mistake, man. That's on purpose to trivialize something very, very serious. And we are losing in the battle to present to the American people and to the West at large, really. The Europeans are kind of stepping up again because it's in they're in their backyard. But we also additionally need to be getting the message out. We are under attack. We've been under attack for a very long time. It is connected to Ukraine. It is connected to Moscow's design on undermining us and dividing and conquering and doing really significant damage to the West. And we cannot just dismiss it with the way that Trump, and the MAGA crowd would like to be dismissive. I think there's even on the other side of the equation as well. We got lefties. We got Kyle Kalinske. We've got the TYT crowd. The Democrats did so much damage to themselves pushing the narrative that Moscow was attacking us. Well, no, first off, I contend that Democrats didn't do enough. And secondly, it actually isn't a political thing. Our entire intelligence community came out and said this is happening, and we ignored it because, reasons.
Well, I'll tell you the primary reason I think it is because post-Vietnam War, and I would argue some lessons forgotten in the lead up to Iraq and Afghanistan. Again, the bleed over from Afghanistan into Iraq, or the predetermined plan, that Project for a New American Century, Bush, Cheney, all that stuff, which is a reality. Either not learning that lesson or intentionally bucking it. There has been an express narrative that America, with our giant power, instead of having, with great power comes great responsibility, the Americans have been taught by the very people who seek to misuse our power that the worst thing that can happen is a runaway American power. And then by pretending they're not running away with it, they kind of talk about that. But that's not what we're doing. And so when you get to, Russia, Ukraine, you start talking about any of these issues, because there have been overreactions or because we've seen them as overreactions in the past, if you even bring up that we're at war with somebody or that they're attacking us for real, the fear is the retaliation, then you'll encourage everybody to get into this retaliatory, jingoistic stance around it. And then America's giant nuke power will lead us to Terminator 2 and the end of the world or whatever. There's this immediate jump from there's an area where we can help, but if we get involved, it's just going to be bad. And the America Bad crowd has partnered with the Ron Paul, who gives a shit about the rest of the world, and the anti-climate change folks and the anti-vaxxer folks have made this coalition of fuck everybody but us. And if we do try to help, we're always going to hurt even our own people, which, by the way, none of them actually believe, or they wouldn't fucking live here. That's always the part that drives me nuts. Like, of the Kalinsky crowd and Jimmy Dore and all these assholes, there's a difference between America, love it or leave it, and you got to love it, warts and all, and, you know, it's got its problems, but we're working on it, and believing it is the inherent evil in the world. There's a huge difference. And Tucker Carlson's the same fucking way. Tucker Carlson, yeah, it's a good point, Jag in the Rydell in the chat room. He spouts the same shit. America is the single, you know, force that drives all the bad in the world. Well, then what the fuck are you doing here? There's a difference between going, I don't like a lot of what my country does, or some of what my country does, or I'm embarrassed by it, or it feels bad, but I'm an American, and therefore, but if you believed it was literally the weapon that is destroying the world, what the fuck are you doing here? And the only answer is, you really don't. It's a lie. You're selling this bullshit because it pads, someone overseas is feathering your fucking nest in the case of Tucker or these other guys. Or it makes you money amongst the Alex Jones crowd where, you know, the conspiracy brain people who are ambulatory and have spending money will throw it your fucking way. But the reality is, like, again, it dirties up the ability of, like, people like you and I who are talking about, like, dealing with things America has done in the past and not trying to do them again. And this kind of baby with the bathwater bullshit that these people are selling, that, again, if you really believed it, what the fuck are you doing here? For real. You know what I mean? Like, there was a point where I was like, I spent so much time in China, and I was so proud of my ability to speak Chinese, and I like the culture so much that I was like, you know, it wouldn't be that out of if I'm 105 or whatever, if I was buried in Beijing or something, who knows where the world goes, you know, that kind of stuff. Now I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? And largely it's because of what the CCP is doing. It's not because I have anything against the Chinese people or Chinese culture. As a matter of fact, I feel like they're strangling it, and it's very sad. But again, not only can I not enter the country again, but I wouldn't anyways right now and promote that I wouldn't normalize what's going on over there because it's dangerous. It's bad, right? And it's you'd think that would apply to them living here or talking about here.
Well, and it's the same old thing. And look, I understand it's our country. We have agency and responsibility as citizens of a democracy to involve ourselves. So when we see American imperialism, Americans don't like imperialism. They really don't. And they especially don't like imperialism when we do it. And when we're doing it ourselves. And so that's understandable. What I have, and the two things can be true at the same time. Yes, as an American, I have very grave concerns over American imperialism and what that is and how we do that on the global stage. But that can be true. And then at the same time, I can be equally, if not more, adversarial towards Russian imperialism. But what bothers me when I see these guys on the left who are turning a blind eye to Russian, aggression and imperialism, is this kind of, stick your fingers in your ear and blah, blah, blah. No. Because I think there's also a thing that exists in the West, and particularly in the left, is like, if we acknowledge that we're at war with Russia, that this is happening, we're going to have to do something about it.
Right.
And
I see a lot of that. We will do something that's an overreaction because there's I don't always parallel it with how we let Russia get away with shit. There's this, again, Russia uses mutual assured destruction as a cudgel. Because everybody's so afraid they're going to nuke the world that you're like, if you don't let me sexually assault this woman, I'm going to shoot the whole family. The Russians are the BTK killer. They are, and we are the fucking, the first family he took in or whatever. He's like threatened everybody else so he could assault who was going to assault, and if you try, he's going to kill everybody. And then in the end, he did anyways. But the Russians use this idea as like mutual assured destruction was a way of supposedly almost like a Mexican standoff where everybody is at a standstill and we can go back to doing what the fuck we want. You assholes could stand here pointing your guns at each other, but the rest of us are going to go back to making food and concerts and selling widgets and whatever. Mm-hmm. But what ultimately Russia did was, if you don't let us attack Georgia, we're going to nuke somebody. If you don't let us attack Chechnya, we're going to nuke somebody. If you don't let us attack Ukraine, we're going to nuke somebody. That and so the plan of whoever the fuck snuck them, the activists that snuck them nuclear technology because they were so afraid that if it only was in America's hands, there would, we'd all be unsafe, literally set up this plan, set this up because the Russians did not earn that technology. They did not deal with the negative ramifications of developing it on their own and the expense of doing it on their own at that time. So they were able to just take it, and therefore it was like a toy they bought. And so that's how Putin treats it. He treats it like a fucking toy. And every time they do something, we have to go, well, we can't, obviously, you got to tiptoe around them in Syria. We got to tiptoe around them in Africa. We got to tiptoe around them in all these places because they might nuke somebody. Nobody worries about that with the United States. Yeah. Even with Trump in office.
When we were withdrawing from
the
Iraq,
vast majority don't really think he's just going to fucking nuke Tehran. Like, would be, that's the strongest possibility of him doing this. I suspect he might Moab parts of Mexico. That concerns me. And he might allow Israel to Moab parts of Iran. And that's deadly and dangerous and awful. But nobody worries about in those situations, like if you fuck with America, they're just going to nuke your country and move on. Like nobody thinks that. But Russia uses that on the regular
Korea
for everything.
When we were losing the Korean War,
we've got to come to terms with that. The reality of that is that they're using this as a tool, and that has to show. I think that people need to be aware that their ethics are shown in that behavior. That behavior by itself
they view power
this is what
dynamics
they're
very
about. The fact that they would even do that.
Everything is pretty much binary.
Oh, sorry. Did I lose you audio for some reason?
Oh.
Sorry, my bad.
Hello?
Hold on.
Test 1, 2, 3.
I'm not sure why I lost your audio on there. Check for me.
Check 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Okay, I guess the folks can hear you. I just can't for some reason. That's very odd. We'll work it out. Anyways, go ahead and say what you were going to say.
No, I was just going to say. I mean, we don't saber rattle with our nukes. We take our nukes very seriously. The Russians are very different. They use it as an instrument to sow fear with their saber rattling. I mean, as I was saying, when we were in the midst of losing Korea. MacArthur wanted to nuke. Well, I think it was actually China that he wanted to nuke, but don't hold me to that. It could have been Pyongyang or North Korea. But anyhow, he wanted to use a nuke, and Truman. That's why Truman sacked him. That's why he recalled MacArthur. Yeah, was MacArthur saber rattling with the nukes, and Truman was like, no, we don't do that, and we never have. Name me a time in a conflict that we have had post World War II. Where we've said we didn't do it in Vietnam, we didn't do it in Grenada, we didn't do it, didn't do it in Iraq, we didn't do it in Afghanistan.
Right.
Whereas the whole cloud that is lying over all of this conflict is the death, the deathly fear that Russians are going to be so irrational and dangerous and reckless that they're going to use a nuke, and they play into it. They know exactly what they're doing.
Right. And I would argue that their useful idiots pick up that slack on their behalf.
Sure.
And carry that narrative farther than it would go organically on its own. They help sell that bullshit. And I do call it bullshit because I don't think it's actually in the cards in any of these situations, or they'd have done it a long fucking time ago. Nobody loses 750,000 soldiers in something like this if you're going to hair trigger nuke somebody because or let them invade Kursk or fire into places or have a drone hit the fucking Kremlin. If you're allowing that to happen and you haven't nuked somebody yet, you're not going to. You either can't because your shit actually doesn't work, which I would argue is a reasonable theory, and you're afraid it doesn't work. And if you try to launch something, it will fall apart and you'll blow something up of your own. We've already seen them hit their own cities, their own trains, their own towns with their own bombs. So the idea that a nuke might go sour like that is not out of the question. And I think they're aware of it.
Yeah. And I think without like a full exchange of, which would be the end of the world.
Right.
You know, it would be on the beach. We'd all be sitting in also those of us who survived would be sitting in New Zealand waiting for the radiation cloud to come down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being facetious slightly, but I mean the point is, so unless it's in full exchange, which ends the human race on this globe, and any isolated use of a nuke wherever it is,
mm-hmm.
you know, that's it. That's the world would instantly turn on Russia and be like, you know, you're done. You're done. Yeah. No fly zone over Ukraine. Direct.
China would back out of
NATO.
that entire thing, like that.
China would back out of it like that.
Yeah, it'd be. And again, to what end? What would you even gain in that circumstance other than I'm going out and I'm taking these motherfuckers with me? Which again is very different from what, you know, his special military operation he's been selling the people about. We just need to get rid of the Nazis in Ukraine. You're like, whoa. Once you start
nuking Kiev, and we've talked about this many times, but I'll reiterate it. We also have to understand that nuking Kiev would be destroying their own history.
Yeah, right.
This is the birthplace of the identity of Rus, which eventually would become Russian. It's not the same. Rus and Russian are not the same, but Moscow appropriated that term when they became bagmen. When they were subsequently bagmen for the Mongol horde, and then when they overthrew it, they took on the mantle of Rus. So to nuke Kiev would be counterproductive to their own sense of identity, and where they would not be. It would not be a good. I still stand by that strongly. Use a nuke on a tactical position on the front line. It's still using a nuke, and you can do that you could conceivably do that with, you know, other conventional weapons. Well, they can't. They clearly can't, because if they could have, they already would have. But they're not going to use a nuke on the front lines. They're not going to use a nuke on Kiev. So what does that leave? Nuke London.
Right.
Nuke a European city.
Warsaw. Berlin. Right.
Yes,
all the shit they warn about on their goddamn show. And again, there's a huge difference.
Which is bullshit. It's bullshit. They're not
even on Fox News at the height of everything awful. You know, I would even during Iraq, I remember people saying, you know, nuke it to glass, like turn the desert into glass and shit like that. But none of it was on your standard cable networks. Right. It was, you heard it on the internet. You heard it on, you know, randos calling into fucking Rush Limbaugh. You know, you heard it from your like nudnik friend that would eventually, you know, turn into a Tea Partier and then a Trump voter, because that's how their brain works. But you wouldn't hear somebody on the nightly news at, you know, on a regular hour go, you know, we need to start nuking the capitals of Europe. To show them we mean business. And if you did that, you'd never see them again, even at the height of like Trumpdom. Even now, like if you say that shit, like they wouldn't be back. But I'm trying to think of somebody on the Fox News show, the Solovyov show or whatever, where somebody who hasn't said that at one point, maybe an occasional general guest that they had on.
Yeah.
But
well, it's always
regulars
London.
have said it.
Nine times out of 10, it's London. Because they still have this, and it's deeply ingrained in Russian culture that it's the Anglo-American alliance that is you know, your main enemy, which is why they're desperate to cleave Britain off from the rest of Europe, and then, you know, the special relationship can survive, but you've hobbled both sides of the Atlantic because, you know, you're trying to undermine NATO. So, you know, look, it's a hollow threat. They're not going to nuke anything. If they did, it would be the end of Russia. It would be, you know, Moscow would, you know,
cease to exist.
But the
Moscow
problem
would
is,
become a country,
yeah,
and Russia would cease to exist. China would use it as a precursor to take back the center of the country.
Yep. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of Far Eastern areas and there's loads of disputed territories from the Russian-Chinese wars that have happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's we need to grow a spine.
Mm-hmm.
We need to define what it is we intend to do and what our goals are. And I don't know if that's possible with this administration. And then perhaps to save the best for last, we need to recognize that we're in an open conflict with Russia and that the area where they have been most successful is in our body politic and in manipulating a lot of really divisive, issues that we have internally within our unfortunately sloppy democracy. Even that's what democracies are, sloppy. It's great if you can have an autocracy and everybody jumps when you say jump. We need to recognize that that's happening and we need to stop it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we do that in the Trump administration, because I think the Trump administration from the head on down is sadly more part of the problem than the solution. We will have to see. We'll see what happens. They're putting a lot of people who consume a lot of bullshit from Russia
in positions
knowingly
of power,
or not.
right.
In positions of power.
Well, and again, I think to your point, a lot of them have been getting tangential information and stuff that they,
this is
like
the thing I'm holding on
third-hand
to.
shit. And once they start drinking from the fire hose of intel, they, hopefully they will wake up. I think a lot of people do. I think that's why a lot of people are disappointed in some cases when a president gets in and their people don't act in this kind of like, cowboy diplomacy kind of way they were expecting, because once they hear the real story, not the filtered thing through the news or the bias that they, people are usually getting it through, that they go, oh, wait a minute. Okay. There's more to this than I heard. And by a lot, maybe we aren't, it isn't so cut and dry.
Once you get inside the firewall and you're getting the straight dope, you're getting, like intelligence officers going and not saying like, so you consume RT and it's like, well, somebody's got a byline or whatever that's in there. Okay, I have no way of confirming that. I am choosing to believe the information that's presented to me from RT. What's going to happen with Tulsi Gabbard and with Kash Patel if he gets in and all the rest of it, all the guys that are getting into the intelligence community, they're going to be sat down in a skiff, and there are going to be guys who are going to go, this is what they've done. We know what they've done. And we know this because this. And we know that because of this. And there will be proof upon proof in intelligence gathering that will be presented to these guys. And the only thing I can hope for is that they will go, oh, I've been reading the National Enquirer all these years, but a guy who is the adjutant to the nuclear forces of Russia is actually working for us, and he tells us this.
Right.
There's a big difference between the National Enquirer and Human Int, or whatever,
Alex Jones.
Intelligence.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Agree.
These are satellite images. These are satellite images of what they've been doing. This is where they actually are. This is what they're actually doing. Here's their money moving around. Here's their I completely agree. Here's what they're doing inside our social media. This is what they're doing. And this is how we have seen them create division within our country using
post-COVID
measures.
I think we have never been. The only thing that really keeps me awake at night, in terms of like these people. As far as things that can't be remedied once the genie's out of the bottle, once you open Pandora's box, is how susceptible to a bioweapon the United States will be under somebody like RFK Jr. or at least under Donald Trump, where people won't want to mask up and won't want to separate and won't believe the science around stuff. So if you wanted to attack the country with a bioweapon, now's the time, because nobody, like blue states will, but you'll wipe out millions of maggots in this situation. And the problem is, if you've got people in Trump circle like Elon Musk who think they're a bunch of useless eaters out there. I got news for you. They don't think it's the urban city dweller. They think it's the rednecks on Snap in trailer parks. And that's a huge chunk of Trump's base. And those two things, again, are those trains that are headed for a collision at some point. My only hope is they don't have to hit. But in this case,
and I would also add, in addition to this, and I know we have very good defenses, but we have some untested techniques that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also worried about the electrical grid, about their infiltration into our infrastructure.
Yeah, they're doing a big. The Biden administration, as part of the infrastructure bill, put a big pull and replace thing in to get rid of like all the Huawei stuff and Chinese stuff and the TP-Link, all the gear that was sitting around, the little like Wi-Fi routers that people had bought at fucking a regular store and brought in, and you're like, that's like the TP-Link ones, which have a Chinese electronic system, and you could like shut down all our ports just because they throw in a piece of malware which exists in there, and that was a real concern. They took it seriously. I think that's a little better. There is nothing in terms of a bio fallback in a similar sense.
But in the sense of their infiltration into our infrastructure and our electrical grid, the problem that the thing that gives me pause for concern is that the Russians like to perfect techniques, and I've seen them getting invasive into, as I say, infrastructure and power and electricity and all that stuff in their, what they refer to as their near abroad, which is, of course, the former Soviet Union primarily.
Right.
They are testing out these techniques. They've done it repeatedly in a lot of different countries. And what concerns me is when they kind of latch onto a technique, they tend to try and perfect it, and then ultimately they'll use the same technique over and over and over again.
Right.
So I have pause for concern, but I think our defense, we are aware of it. I know we're aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to lots of people in the intelligence community. We're aware of it. But the question is, it doesn't, they don't have to get past our defenses, every time. They just need to get past our defenses once.
Right.
And
right.
They could do some real serious
and like I said, electrical grid is one kind of fallback. Your health is not. And this kind of like, I don't believe the experts is a perfect setup for somebody who wants to weasel past any defense that you have, because nobody will listen to the authorities. And so undermining authority, in the abstract, has a secondary value to anybody that would want to attack you, in the same way that somebody wants to keep you in a shit relationship trapped in the house. All they have to tell you is everybody hates you, and you have to be afraid of anybody you see on the street. And the last person you want to talk to is a police officer or something like that. Then you have no chance of escaping their bullshit. Right. Yep. So anyways,
and they know it.
Yeah. We're at the end of the show, and I appreciate it. We'll see you on Saturday. Man. Philip Bittner has a show, On the Edge. Please check it out. New episode this weekend.
New episode this weekend, if all goes according to plan.
Yes, I love it when a plan comes together.
If our guest doesn't cancel on us.
Understood. All right. Well, good luck, and I will see you soon, brother. Thank you so much.
Right. I'll talk to you on Saturday. All right.
Okay.
Stay safe, everybody. Spread the word.
Will do. All right. Cheers. Thanks. And off he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much. I was, for those of you that were kind of marginally concerned or confused, I was supposed to fly out today, but my flight got canceled because of snow. Obviously not here, but where it was going. And so you're going to have to deal with me today and tomorrow. So I'll see you this afternoon for the regular show, and tomorrow. And then, that's a good idea. I love the idea of raiding Cliff. He deserves it. See if I can jump in here and follow this guy. Go in this business right here. Shut up. And go into here. And Andrea, do you have Cliff's channel? I just want to make sure it's in here. So let me go to my widget. Remind me later. It sounds good. Go away. Let's see. I think I should be following him in here. Should be all right, but nope, it's not in here. Yeah. Let's see if it's. Yeah, there we go. I got it. Cliff's Edge. There he is. Excellent. Yeah, we're going to do a raid of Cliff's Edge right now, everybody. Oh, I'm already doing it. Thanks, CSL. You got it? Oh, bless you. Thank you. All right. Well, everybody send Cliff some love. We'll see you guys later. And I'm sending him a message right now. And I'll see you guys this afternoon. Take care of yourselves. Take care of somebody else. And see you later. And now I get to go be mad that I don't get to see my kids today. Oh, and I've got to play a song too. That's my bad. I blame myself.